letter K, financial report.
So just a little FYI, and I don't know what kind of special prize you get for noticing, but we reordered the agenda and then we changed them to different letters. We were going to try to do it a different way, but regardless, we skipped the letter J. So we're going to fix that, but this meeting we don't have letter J. Okay. So financials. Take a look. At the profit and loss statement. This is the first time, and she is here with us, Joyce Tynes, and at some point we may want to have her unmute and say whatever she would like to say, or you may have questions for her. These the profit and loss statement and the balance sheet looks slightly different. Joyce has done a little bit of consolidating for you for ease of reviewing these statements. And, but it's still the same information. So what she has done is looked at this from July 1st of 2021 through October 31st of 2021 as the comparison here. And then looking at the variances between last year and this year at the same time. So out far right, if you've got your spreadsheet open far enough, you can see some of the commentary that she has on here. Not a lot of additional commentary about income, except for the fact that we are at our financial low point. November 1 is the beginning of renewals, and renewals are the bulk of our operating expense for the entire year. So what you're seeing here is sort of probably a difference of snapshot in time and what money has been moved where to cover the expenses, and that's why this looks a little lower than the prior year. Joyce, did you have anything you wanted to add about that on the income side of things?
No, and if anybody's got, and like Kathy said, just from my background, and I will tell you, this is a lot more detail than I would normally do for any, but because of the size of the balance sheet and the P&L, I've done that. But we do have, I have every line item if anybody has drill down questions. I'm very comfortable with where we stand. Kathy and I've had lots of conversations about where we are financially going into November, both from an expense and an income side of the world.
Yeah.
All the variances, especially in expenses, are known. And if you look at what was planned, any of these variances was planned for the 2021-2022 year.
We've had probably a little less board expense than we might have had during a normal year. Obviously, we're not going anywhere, and the board members have not been coming to the office or staying overnight for meetings, so that's going to be less than maybe prior years. So that's very explainable. Although I'm kind of looking at this, and that's not exactly what I'm seeing here. I was looking at the wrong category. Otherwise, some of our prior high expenses, like office supplies and things like that, those are, some of that is, we've spent more this year, and it's partly, I think it's timing, because when we send out the newsletter and when we do purchasing of various things. But I think, as Joyce said, we're well within what was expected to happen at this point in time. So that's the profit and loss statement. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to ask while I'm pulling up the balance sheet, which is the next document that we typically look at. And this just shows exactly where the money is and listing of the accounts that we have, where we have some assets and other liabilities. Down in the liability column, we've got, what we haven't paid out in accounts payable, and then accrued vacation, that's always there. Then if you move down into the equity category, that's the description of where our designated and undesignated reserve is. And you all are familiar with those categories. And Jerry Dodd, because we got our audit done, completed earlier this year, he went ahead and made the transfer of the money into the information technology reserve already. So that's part of the difference between this year and last year. And I think that's it. Anybody have any questions about the balance sheet? Okay. Then moving on, we always provide the adopted budget for the current fiscal year for your reference. If you want to look at that, you're welcome to do so. Under the banking account update, this kind of in lieu of any additional recommendations that we might have for the board, I think high on my priority list is wrapping up the approvals for closures that the board had given us last year. And then also continuing to monitor that we're under the FDIC limit and all of those accounts. At the very bottom of this banking account update, you'll see the summary actions, and we still have some accounts that need to be closed, CDs that we have to wait until their maturity date in order to do that. And then the monies are going to be consolidated with the exception of PNC, which is our main checking account where things flow in. And then the money market, which just gives us a little bit of buffer there. If we need to transfer money for anything, we can do it right from that. And then Pinnacle, which is more of, I'm going to say, the investment side of things, that, as we talked about at the June meeting, minimizing risk to the monies that the board has, it's all invested in very low risk kinds of investments. So this sheet is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller over time, is the bottom line, because we're going to be closing 4 more accounts. And beyond that, I don't have any additional recommendations for things that we change at this point. We talked a little bit about the fact that we'll have more data after February 1st about what happened with renewals, and whether we may have enough reserve for 2023 to reduce the renewal fees. So, but that's discussion to be determined. Any questions on the financials or for Joyce?
No, thank you, Joyce. Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. All right, Madam Chair, that's it for that.
There's financial recommendations to the board.
Yeah, no, I mean, as a verbal update, we're going to wrap up what we had said we needed to finish wrapping up in last year and get those completed before we do anything else.
Okay. Next up is letter L, report from our esteemed Deputy Director, Debbie Reagan.
Thank you very much. My report is in there for your reading pleasure. I want to touch base on a couple of items. One is record retention. We are getting ready to embark. Even though we're still in COVID, we can do some record retention, even though we're extending application deadlines and that sort of thing. But we're going to embark on a large record retention project. We will consolidate revivals into the permanent files. We will deconstruct 2016. So I am thrilled about that. And then we may dive into our scanned documents to see what we can archive versus what we can clean up as we move more into an electronic platform. So the more we go paperless, the happier I am. So looking forward to that record retention project. We did publish the newsletter October 29th, 2021. And during that process, Kim Jackson, who was instrumental in helping to get it published, started to realize we probably can do the graphic design in-house if we work on it. And the advantage to potentially bringing the design of the newsletter in-house would be to meet the goals of some of the board members, which would be to work toward having a newsletter more often. So again, we will, that is one of the goals that we've set for ourselves because she is looking at some software and we decided we don't have to be an Adobe Pro to be able to create the newsletter. So good things are coming. The military expedited process, which started last December, where we had 15 days to give someone a temporary military permit, as opposed to 30 days, continues to be doing well. Again, it started out with December 1st, and we went from an average of 38 days prior to December the 1st of last year. And in since the last board meeting, we're averaging 2.8 days. So I congratulate the team on continuing to be proactive with that and meeting the legislative intent and getting the temporary military permits issued. Would like to touch base on a couple of other things not listed, and one is the renewal process. Still getting a significant number of questions because of COVID on have we changed the board rules for continuing competence. We did post that article last year about how you can get a continuing competence online. We also decided it was worthwhile to publish it again this year. And I'm using it probably 4 or 5 times a day to say you can still get your continuing competence on time. We don't want to discourage in-person activities because they have value, but also understand we're in trying times that are still ongoing. So continuing to answer lots of questions about continuing competence. Get questions this time of year about especially new people who have been newly licensed and questions about, well, do I have to go back and renew my license already? And the answer there is, you got a license, now you have to renew it. And we quote the board rule to make them understand this is an annual process by the end of January every year. The other thing I want to touch base on is a little bit more on the temporary exemptions that Kim has been doing such a wonderful job on. We do feel like that she and everybody else team effort have done a good job with public protection. We went back and did an audit. Those who have been licensed have been licensed. They've been notified, their temporary exemption goes away. Those who still have it, none of us thought we'd still be in the state of emergency after this length of time, but we did a 100% audit to make sure that all of these people with a temporary exemption from licensure still have an active license, PT or PTA, in another state. We came upon 3 that we could not confirm that they had it, and we were successfully able to, one was a name change, one said he no longer needs the temporary exemption, and the other person we were able to confirm had changed jobs, changed states, and we now have him listed correctly with an active license. And what in the process, what we did do was we wrote the expiration dates of everyone's license in another state, so that if this continues on, we will be able to be aware of those who are technically going to have their license expire, so we can again audit that group on an ongoing basis. to be sure that they still maintain an active license in another state. So we felt like that was a worthwhile endeavor. All of the licensing team, plus Kim did that to as a public protection audit. And we were pleased with the results of that and how we'll be able to utilize that going forward. The new graduate satisfaction survey, we continue to struggle to understand the Prometric customer satisfaction data, also realizing that the applicants fill out the Prometric survey when they finish taking the National Physical Therapy exam, whether we consider that to be the optimal time to find out how satisfied they are with the process. I know, except for the fact mine was paper-based, that might not be the best time, but appreciating the information that we get and wanting to know what the customer satisfaction is for the application process. So we have now developed a process that we can do this on an ongoing basis if we decide we need to. We are surveying all of the applicants who are scheduled to take the January exam. They're obviously finishing up their application process, and we sent them a Google survey, and we've gotten a few responses back, which we really appreciate. One really found the new website to be much more helpful, which that was appreciated. And another one that I thought was interesting was that the emails seemed to be, they were not sure were they from a person or were they automated. We do strive to say the same thing to answer the same questions so that we are consistent. But we will be looking into making sure that we personalize it to the person that we are responding to be sure that it doesn't look like an automated email. But if we get these results back and we want to continue it, then we can then pull the list of the April, July, and October and continue to find out what are the current issues with our applicants and what can we do to improve our processes. So we're glad that we have that now in place. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Any questions for Debbie about that? Hearing none, we'll move on to Committee on Board Rules, and this goes back to our Deputy Director, Debbie Reagan.
Okay. The Rules Subcommittee met September 29th of 2021, and they decided to move forward with the permanent rulemaking process on a number of rules. Again, this does not stop the fact if we end up starting another round of rules for imaging, et cetera, but because you can have a timeline for a set of rules, and this is the one that we're putting forth now. What it involves is slight amendments to 5 rules and repeal of 2 others. What that involves is we are consolidating. There's been some duplicate language in the rules. Some of these rules are older than others, and we're consolidating so that the information is put in the correct place. So the ones that are being repealed, the information is just being moved to the correct location. So that explains the 2 that are being repealed. We are clarifying the definitions of the continuing competence, 30 minutes and 60 minutes. Really have found a decreasing amount of individuals or when someone is wanting a course approval of trying to go, okay, it was 25 minutes and now 25 minutes times 25 minutes. How many points do I get? 30 minutes is 30 minutes. 60 minutes is 60 minutes. It's not about the points, it's about the education and the quality of the education. So we're clarifying that. One of the rules being put forth is about the name, and we're stating that the licensee shall use the name that is on the license certificate in the workplace. Because people do change their name, they don't change their name, but they need to maintain their license certificate needs to be updated, and it's the responsibility of the licensee to be sure that that is up to date. And then one was a technical change that we put forth back in the in August, and they denied it, thinking that it changed the spirit of the rule. Essentially what we were doing was reordering the rule that says revival of lapsed license. We're not changing the information, we were just reordering it, but they wanted us to go through the permanent rule process to be sure that we were not changing the spirit of the rule. So we are not doing that. So what we need to do, according to the timeline, is today the board will need to vote to publish the proposed permanent rules. So if I might turn that back to you, Madam Chair.
Yes, I'll entertain a motion about this.
And there is, if you look and click up, there should be a draft of a statement that could be utilized.
Oh,
It should be in there.
I'll see if I can pull it.
Let's look for it. Kim put it in there. Let's see where she put it. Oh, if you'll go
Which
under proposed timeline, it's in there. I apologize. And it says motion to publish proposed rules.
We may have to refresh if it's not, if you don't see it, it may.
I don't have it on mine.
I don't either, Debbie. Would you
Okay.
like to read it for them?
Okay, I'll read it. Let me get it pulled back up. Let's see, it's under notice of text. It's under notice of text, excuse me.
Oh, notice of text.
I apologize.
Okay.
And it's the middle attachment that says motion. Does it come up for you?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. I apologize for that.
that's okay. So I'll go ahead and make the motion and read it. NC Board of PT Examiners motion to publish proposed permanent rules. The North Carolina Board of Physical Therapy Examiners moves to publish the proposed permanent rules cited as 21 NCAC 48B.0102, 0101, 0105, 02, 03, 05, 04, and to propose repeal of the following rules: 21 NCAC 48E.0104 and 0103.
Let me just clarify, Madam Chair, that not all of those are 48B or 48E. You've got to, that if everyone
Oh,
has
I
the
see.
motion in front of them, there is a distinction. And
I'm sorry, it's 48 B, F, G, they're different. And you can read those in front of you. The
How
affirmation.
about this? Oh, I was supposed to say, how about we move to accept the deputy director's recommendation for the rule change?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. It's thoroughly written out specifically. All those in favor say aye by roll call. Teresa Hale, aye. David Edwards,
Aye.
JB Minor,
Aye.
Dr. Paul Garcia,
Aye.
Rosa Gonzalez,
Aye.
Leslie Kessler,
Aye.
and Pearl Roan.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there anything else, any other questions for our deputy director or any other comments, Debbie, that you need to make?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to agenda item letter N. This is our technology committee update. It says that Greg Sipp is going to do it, but I guess that would be David Knoll in this case.
no, it's just Greg provided a written report for your review.
Oh, okay.
And so if you will go to the item, the attachment in ClickUp, what he's done is provided some of the high level projects that the IT department is working on, and they are there for your review. I think, as you can see, if these are the high level projects, there's a lot going on in IT and a lot going on behind the scenes as well. So if anyone has any questions about this, I can answer them to the best of my ability, and maybe we ask David and all to jump in if I can't do it. But
I don't have a question, but I just would like to commend the team for the website redesign and getting it up by the self-imposed deadline.
yes, thank you for
Yeah,
acknowledging.
it's pretty awesome.
Mhm.
We did send around some little small tokens of our appreciation to everybody, because we had people working in the office, out of the office, and all kinds of places. And now that was another team effort, and great job was done on that for sure.
Okay, we'll move on to correspondence with schools, letter O. You've got Kathy for pass rates.
So in my review of the pass rates from 2021 back through 2018, I mean, there are some differences in the pass rates, but when I look at it in an overview and look at the fact that we've been in COVID for the last 2 years, and everybody's had, you know, as many challenges as there can be, while some of these numbers are maybe a little lower than they have been in the past, other ones are somewhat higher. A couple of schools haven't had testers in 2021 yet, so they're at a zero just because they haven't had any testers. When you look at the PTA programs, and while some of them are on the lower side, I know we've communicated with them before, and those are the first time pass rates, but then they jump up when you look at the ultimate pass rate. And for the ultimate pass rate, everybody is within range of and above the national average. So North Carolina programs are being successful. What they use as their metric of success, I don't know. But, you know, I think if we look at it against the national average, everybody is managing to hold their own during COVID and you know, the challenges that people are experiencing. One thing I will also note is that if you look at total numbers of people taking the exam between 2020 and 2021, it's significantly down, a couple thousand. And, you know, so that's just an interesting thing to note. There are less test takers, and that may mean that there are going to be less North Carolina licensees just by virtue of less people completing one of the requirements for licensure. So just something to keep in mind. We've got school addresses and contacts, and the licensing staff does their best to keep that updated. But if you experience or know about any changes, please feel free to send that over to the office so that we can communicate with them in an efficient manner. You also got some reminders about testing dates for 2022 and 2023. I think they've got that listed, or yeah, there are links to that in the document that I provided. Those of you that had an opportunity to read the FSBPT news brief, I believe a month or two ago, they noted that they were going to have some windows for testing. So they're going to have a few dates on most of the exam dates. Of the 5 times a year, you're going to have a few opportunities to be able to take the test, hoping that you know is going to be helpful in getting more people taking the exam. So just be aware of that, and licensing staff is always on top of when these testing dates are, when the scores come out, and letting the board members know, you know, when things may be coming their way. So we appreciate the speed at which you all do that, and the efficiency and asking the questions that you need to ask. So thank you for that. The last thing on here that we have in the loaded into ClickUp is the fact that IERF, which is one of the educational credentialing agencies, they periodically check in with us just to make sure that they are interpreting our rules correctly. So we've done that about military and responded to them. And then the licensing staff, and Debbie may want to speak to this, has sent out a communication to the schools just with, a recap of things that happened. And Debbie, you may want to add into that.
I do feel like that the overall feeling as we transition, as we've transitioned to AAP, people are, program directors are getting the hang of it. Students are getting the hang of it because the prior cohort is now gone that, again, experienced the application process in the other way. We also are moving to official transcripts instead of having the certification of education form. So that gave us an opportunity to explain to the program directors why we think that would be, one, it's the most accurate. It's an official document. They can send them in bulk. They can send them electronically. So that was another opportunity that we had for communication with the program directors regarding the changes at the board office.
Okay, that's good.
And then I'll be communicating about the advanced techniques and the board's decision on temporary permits for new graduates.
Okay, Prometric.
Well, we have the Prometric report, and I've found myself calling Christine Sousa more often lately because I'm not able to come up with the same numbers that she's telling me that we have. And what they made some distinctions about was they took some of the test takers out of the calculation. And so if you look at the document that's uploaded on the first page or the second page, it says that this overall satisfaction rating is 82.87%, which is for all jurisdictions. And then they go into this chart below, which is specific to North Carolina, and they categorize very satisfied and satisfied as your satisfaction rating, but then they remove some of these. Wasn't it the uncertain ones, Debbie? Was that the ones they take out because they don't really know why they're not answering correct or why they're uncertain about it? And then they do a calculation of how many people took the test, and that's the percentage. And I believe we landed around 87%. So, that's not bad. I think we're still in somewhat trying times. And again, attributing to when this survey is actually completed, you're probably exhausted and you're done. And, you're not thinking really about your licensing application. You're thinking about the exam experience. So I'm not finding this the metric upon which to hang our hat about complete satisfaction with North Carolina. But Debbie's has provided you the report on how we're going to try to get more insight into that on our own. But that is the report for these last 3 months.
Okay, we'll move on into the Ethics Commission.
So I have tried to provide things that are a link for the recurring items. So everybody knows that they need to do their ethics training every 2 years, and the link in ClickUp is exactly where you go to complete that ethics training. Similarly, if you look at the SEI, same thing, the link is there and you can obtain the form and the directions right there for doing that. Then as far as ethics compliance goes, that's just, when did everybody complete what they were required to complete? You're all familiar with that, and you can look at that when you are next due to complete your ethics training requirement. And looks like Pearl maybe coming up, and Teresa Hale, March, Jamie in March of 2022. So just please take a look at that, put that on your calendar. You know, it takes you a couple of hours to do it, and you want to get that in on time. And it's always helpful for us to know that you completed it, just so that we're not constantly asking you whether you've done it or not. And then, as they always do, they send out the annual Ethics Commission newsletter, and it's they do it around the holidays because, you know, it talks a lot about accepting gifts and the limitations on accepting gifts. And if anybody has any questions, I'm sure David can chime in and answer those if the newsletter doesn't do that for you.
Okay, then we'll go to PT licensure compact. And, you know, our board is very fortunate to have the National PT Compact Chairperson on as our executive director.
So thank you for that. We have just completed our 4th annual meeting. I get confused whether I always say it's the 4th, but it's probably just the 3rd annual meeting, because the meeting to stand up the commission didn't count as one. Anyway, we did have elections, and I appreciate the board's support. I will have another 2-year term as chair. And, you know, the compact now is in its maturing phase and really working on growth. And so a couple of things that are accomplished at the meeting was an update to the bylaws, rules, and policy and procedures. And we recently instituted a compliance committee. And then the executive board is adding a marketing task force. Because without the commission being able to be independent financially, it makes it really hard for the compact to continue and to be sustainable over time. And I think we have recognized a lot of political capital from being a part of the compact, as well as really being able to serve the public during the pandemic. So, you know, I'm invested in seeing that it continue. And so that marketing committee relates to the last item on the agenda, which is that in order to be able to most efficiently access or get information to licensees about the compact, they've requested that we allow use of the email addresses for the purposes of marketing. And as you all know, in North Carolina, if it's, you know, in the office, we share it, and we already provide them with email addresses as part of our weekly and then bi-weekly for the compact upload to the Compact Commission and FSBPT. So we have given that authorization to be able to do that. Other states may not have that same ability, but we're really hopeful that that will be a more efficient way for people who may not have knowledge about the compact yet to get it, and then make, you know, best decisions for them based upon that. So the language of the data use agreement is there for your review. We didn't have to sign anything at this point, but I would bring that to the board for approval at another meeting. And then as far as compliance reports go, you know, we continue to not have any compliance issues that are concerns that the commission wants us to address. So that's all good.
Good.
So I think we're doing well with that, and the commission continues to evolve and mature.
Okay, now moving right along, board appointments. I think we were all excited to find out who would be joining our board. but apparently the governor has not gotten around to making any appointments. Is that correct, Kathy?
I can't report anything until I get an official letter from the governor, and I don't have any of those. So there's nothing to report at this point in time. When we do get the letters, I will be able to notify everybody through an email or blast to the group and let you know who's been appointed and reappointed and where we go from there.
And just so you know, we have no control over this. We have to wait until we hear from the governor's office to know how we move forward.
Yeah, I would say Governor Cooper has been timely in his term in notifying us. So I would expect that we get those pretty soon. At least I hope that we will. So we'll be able to let everybody know soon going into 2022.
Good. And then letter T in your agenda are all the reports to the state that have been made by our board, by Kathy.
Yes. So the very last report or item on this list is the directors and officers insurance annual renewal application. So what happened was I guess the notification to fill out this application somehow got lost in the email. And we realized that this needs to be done about this time of year and reached out to them, and the application has been submitted. We do not have a response from them yet, but the application's been completed. So I'm not worried that we won't get a response. But what I need the board to do is to approve us renewing the policy. So in the past, it's been anywhere between $20,000 and $24,000 a year to renew this policy. And what I'd like to say is, because I don't know what the amount's going to be this year, it's gone down maybe $500 a year over time. So all I'd like to say is that if it is between $20,000 and $24,000 to renew that policy for this year, I would recommend to the board that we renew it.
And it's already in the budget.
It is.
Okay.
So I just need a motion, and that way I won't have to come back to you in between the meetings, because I think it has to be done by the end of the year.
Kathy, I would maybe say 25 just in case, so you don't have to go back again, because I don't know if it'll go up or down. And I think last year's was like 24.5, something like that,
Okay,
just in case.
we'll say 25 then, and $25,000.
Okay, motion to approve the executive director's request to renew the liability insurance up to $25,000.
Second.
Who is that?
Rosa seconded. David made the motion and Rosa Gonzalez seconded to approve the directors and officers insurance renewal budget of up to $25,000. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye through a roll call vote. Teresa Hale, aye. David Edwards.
Aye.
Jamie Minor.
Aye.
Dr. Paul Garcia.
Aye.
Pearl Roan.
Aye.
Leslie Kessler.
Aye.
Rosa Gonzalez.
Aye.
Let the record show that this was a unanimous vote. So, thank you. Okay, election of officers and FSBPT delegates, appointment of committees. Kathy.
So, as we have done in the past, I have provided you, well, in the last couple of years, I've provided you with a list of the committees, subcommittees, advisory panels that we currently have. And then some, general responsibility descriptions so that you have an idea about what the role or responsibility of each job is. And you will know whether you would be interested in performing one of these roles, or if you would like to nominate someone else who you think would be good to do that. So the chair and the secretary treasurer jobs are nominated officers of the board, or I mean elected. So we would take nominations for those positions for the calendar year of 2022.
I nominate Teresa Hale to continue as chair.
A second.
Is that a smile, Teresa?
Yeah, okay. The motion, is there another nomination?
Are there
from
any
the
other
floor?
nominations?
Yeah, are there any other nominations from the floor? Okay, hearing none, I guess we're going to be voting on chair for next year, 2022. Motion was made by David Edwards and seconded by
I second.
Jamie.
I second.
Oh,
Pearl.
Pearl. Okay, thank you. So we will take a roll call vote to vote on Teresa Hale as chair for next year. So roll call vote, let it be known by saying aye. David Edwards,
Aye.
Jamie Minor,
Aye.
Dr. Paul Garcia,
Aye.
Pearl Roan,
Aye.
Leslie Kessler,
Aye.
Rosa Gonzalez,
Aye.
and I will abstain from voting for myself. The ayes have it. The motion carries. You have elected Teresa Hale as your chairperson again for next year. And I'm very happy to serve in this capacity. Thank you for your vote of confidence, and I look forward to a new year.
Thank you for the great job that you've done.
Thank you, David.
So the next elected position is secretary treasurer,
Uh-huh.
and we need nominations for the secretary treasurer position.
I nominate David Edwards.
Third right now.
You beat Teresa.
I'm sorry,
So-
Pearl, I didn't hear you.
No, I asked, isn't David the secretary treasurer right now?
He is the secretary treasurer right now. Correct.
I would like, David, would you like to continue? I want to nominate you, but I want to make sure you're okay with that.
Well, I cannot leave Teresa's side, so yes.
I nominate David.
Second.
We are quite the team, I'll tell you. Motion's been made and seconded to appoint David Edwards as secretary treasurer. And I'd like to do a roll call vote to accept that. And all those in favor of David having that role, please let it be known by saying aye on a roll call vote. Teresa Hale, aye. Jamie Minor,
Aye.
Dr. Paul Garcia,
Aye.
Pearl Roan,
Aye.
Leslie Kessler,
Aye.
Rosa Gonzalez.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Let the record show it was a unanimous vote in support of accepting David Edwards as our next secretary treasurer for the 2022 calendar year.
David Edwards, did you vote?
I abstain.
Okay. Great. Okay, so that is the officers. So now the standing committees are the investigative committee and the finance and audit committee. And these are appointments by the chair. And the investigative committee currently consists of the board member, Jamie Minor. And again, historically, we have tried to keep the same person if they are willing to serve in a role on the investigative committee for a couple of years, because the longevity on that committee, you've kind of gotten your knowledge base about you, and serving for a couple of years maintains the consistency of that committee. So
Are you willing to do that, Jamie?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
great.
And the investigative committee is formed by the executive director, our legal counsel, David Gadd, and Jamie Miner. And then we have the consultant, Mark Scott, who is our private investigator, our PI. And they've done a tremendous job over this last year. So Jamie, thank you for serving, your willingness to serve again. It's a very crucial role that we've
It's been
played.
very eye-opening, and I feel like I'm just getting rolling, after 10 months or 11 and maybe getting into my stride. So thank you.
Right, good. That's good. What other task force and committee appointments do we need?
We've got the Finance and Audit Committee, which consists of the Secretary Treasurer, they're the chair, and then one other board member appointed by the chair. The chair meaning you, the chair of the board.
Right.
Crystal has currently been on it, but because she's not eligible for reappointment, we may need to consider an alternative. Because whenever the appointments do come, we don't know how long she would continue to serve.
That's right. So currently David Edwards is the chair of the Finance Committee. Is there someone else who would volunteer to serve with David on that committee?
I would like to nominate Leslie.
Okay, Leslie, would that be acceptable to you?
Sure, I'll serve however you desire.
Thank you, Leslie. So the board appoints Leslie Kessler to serve on the Finance Committee along with our Secretary Treasurer, David Edwards.
Thank you,
I
Leslie.
anticipate that this year it'll be at least 2 meetings because we're going to have to send out the RFP this year for the auditor and then the annual budget. But beyond that, I don't foresee planned meetings, but we may have some more. I don't know. Then subcommittees, the board's rules committee is one of the committees that we need to have members serve on. Currently consists of Leslie Kessler and David Edwards.
Just really getting into the step of it, so I would be glad to be reappointed.
I'll serve however needed.
Okay, is there anybody else just dying to serve on the Rules Committee?
It's lots of fun.
I'll tell you what, I've served on it too, and it's Debbie, our executive director, deputy director, makes it understandable. So I really appreciate that, Debbie. So David and Leslie, if you're willing to continue to serve, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we have our Public Protection Task Force. And our current members are David Edwards, Leslie Kessler, Crystal Osland, and Rosa Gonzalez. We, again, because Crystal is not eligible for reappointment, we may need to consider swapping out a member or determining whoever wants to serve that's still on the board.
I will take Crystal's place and we'll see what happens, since I'm not sure what will happen in 2020. I don't know what's going to happen between now and then, but I will serve, and then whoever.
So we probably need to also have a backup just in case.
Yeah.
Since it's the time of year when they do the appointments. That way we won't be short a member.
I'll be glad to serve as the backup.
All right, so is there anyone else that's interested? Do we need to choose between that?
Well, so right now it's David Edwards, Leslie Kessler, Rosa Gonzalez, and Crystal. We're just replacing Crystal.
Well, I think because she's not eligible to be reappointed, it would be good to have that.
Okay. And is Pearl eligible to be reappointed?
We don't know what's going on with me, so
We don't.
as long as Crystal stays there, if the governor don't nominate anybody yet, then she stays there. But then if he do nominate somebody, since she can't be reappointed, then I'm willing to do that. So I guess it's all.
And so it would be Pearl, and then Teresa in case there's a change.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And keeping in mind that there may end up being a task force for strategic planning, but we'll do that in March. Then FSBPT delegate and alternate delegate.
Hang on a second. I've got a thing we left out was personnel. Do we have a personnel task force mainly to look at your performance appraisal? Or is
I
that
don't have
something
that
the
on.
chair can manage and get input from others?
So yeah, that would be the ED performance review. And I don't have that on the list. I'm sorry. I managed to not include that.
Yeah, you didn't want to be reviewed this year.
Well, you know. Yeah, so that is up to you to do those appointments.
I think that we've gotten that down to a science, and as your chair, I'm happy to spearhead the performance appraisal on Kathy. I appreciate everybody's input last year. We got good input from each board member and able to share that with Kathy. So I'm happy to continue to do that next year.
Okay, anybody else want to be on that with you, or are you just good doing that?
Anybody else want to join me on that?
I'm glad to help if you need it.
Okay.
I was going to say I would also if you needed help.
All right. I think David's got a lot on his plate, and Jamie, you've got a lot on your plate, but I appreciate the offers. So I'll pull it all out together and see what we need and let you know.
And then FSBPT delegate, you know, at this point, my understanding is that they are planning to get together in person. Who knows what Omicron's going to bring, but this would be an in-person meeting. It's in California, so it's going to be several days out of your schedule if you choose to participate.
Do we know the dates, Kathy?
Yes.
October 21 and 23 through 23.
The compact meeting is on the 25th. So Anita, just a minute. I didn't put that on my schedule here.
Agenda says 21st to the 23rd.
Huh. Okay, then I'm wrong about the compact meeting then. So yeah, 21st to 23rd of October of 2022.
Mhm.
Who hasn't been to one of those meetings as a delegate?
I haven't. I would be willing to serve in that role.
Well, I'll nominate David then.
And then the alternate delegate needs to go to the meeting in case the delegate can't serve their role. So that would be the other person that we would need to.
I'll nominate Jamie.
Okay.
Fine with that.
David, you're willing to serve as delegate. Jamie, you're willing to serve as alternate delegate.
Yes, ma'am.
Hopefully you'll be in sunny California at the end of October next year. Thank you both for
Can we
that.
bring Cindy?
Right, I'm sure she'd love to go with you.
Okay. So did we capture it all this time?
Reports from recent meetings, FSBPT committee service, API, and then all those wonderful FSBPT webinar series. Have any of you taken advantage of those? Those are so good.
Yeah.
Prior to this meeting, Leslie wanted to advise me that if anybody hadn't been able to listen to the Weathering the Storm, and Leslie can speak for herself on this, I'm sure, but she really enjoyed that one and got a lot of interesting information out of it. And, you know, when you log into their portal, you can get back to any of the ones that they've had this year. You know, at some points, it's like, it's so many, you can't always make it to every one of them, but you can go back and asynchronously do any of them. And they've had a lot of interesting titles this year, I've thought. Anything else you want to say about that, Leslie?
No, it was just you know, some different perspectives on things, and I thought that one was really. I mean, they've all been very interesting and well done, and so, but that one was particularly thought provoking to me. So, but also enjoying the Dale Atkinson series, of course. You just never know what he's going to come up with.
Yeah, he's very entertaining.
Yeah, he's warmed up to doing the online. At first, I think he was kind of nervous about that, but he's if you need a 101 on how to be a board member, listen to every single one of those. It's all they're really good.
After, was it last week or the week before, the one about communication?
I didn't
Did you see
listen to
that one? There was one was talking about what kind of policies do you have about communication, and do you have policies that say, like, once something goes up on the website, how long does it stay, and all those kind of things. And again, he just helped you think about things that, you know, never would have crossed my mind otherwise.
Way into the weeds for sure, which is very helpful because you don't have time to think about that sometimes.
Well, and just like the questions about the search on our website for position papers, and it saves everything. You can't discriminate on what the internet saves for you. So you have to be careful what you put up in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very true. Although that I think we were forced out of that one.
Yeah.
The FSBPT API pilot project, Debbie and Greg, and I can't remember who else has been meeting with the FSBPT, and they're waiting to hire somebody on their end to take the next step with that project, so that's where they're going to share their data with us. And, you know, it's more of a reciprocal exchange as opposed to just a one way. I briefly talked with Greg about that the other day, and he's not seeing the downsides at this point in time, but, you know, the devil's in the details, and until they hire a person and really start programming it, it might be, you know, it's good to just take it one step at a time. And then Debbie, did you have anything you wanted to say about the ELDD task force?
It is still ongoing and process. They're going to continue with the 5-star rating, but they are going to streamline the process so that it doesn't seem punitive, and it gives more clarity. What their ultimate goal is, that the jurisdictions provide the information and that the FSBPT staff doesn't have to go hunting for it. But we do see that if we can make a case for you know, telling a story about why is this public protection, if we can have access early on to people that are being investigated, or people that have had discipline, you know, how wonderful is that for public protection, especially if we had to go defend it, say, to the legislature. So we see assisting in getting more people involved in the ELDD process can also kind of overlap with this task force of exchange of information. And then that all helps public protection.
And just to clarify for new people joining this call today, the ELDD stands for?
Exam and Disciplinary Database, Exam Licensure Disciplinary Database.
And is that just for physical therapists?
And physical therapist assistants. Mm-hmm. It would be nice to be able to have those metrics right at your hand if you needed, if you needed them. And again, if someone has gotten a discipline in one jurisdiction, to know that sooner as opposed to later, should someone want to, you know, apply by endorsement or temporary license or it just would be very good public protection, the more jurisdictions that can get involved and supply that information.
I think that was a surprise I had at this past annual meeting. Was I had an assumption that every jurisdiction was mandated to participate in the ELDD. And I was really surprised that that was not the case.
That's true. So still
And-
working on making it meaningful, but making it meaningful, not in a punitive way, but in a really positive way. And also developing a story to tell the jurisdiction so that they can use it to convince the powers that be that this needs to take place.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Debbie.
Hmm.
Any other question about the Federation? Okay, we'll move on to APTA-NC. Their annual meeting is coming up in October.
That was this
And
past
where is
year.
it this year?
Well,
Same place, I think.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I think it's gonna be in the same place.
Okay.
I honestly don't remember. It's not on the 8th and 9th in 2022. That was for this year.
That was this year.
Oh, sorry, I don't have those dates.
And it was the 100th anniversary celebration of APTA.
Mhm. Yes. And we provided our report to APTA-NC. They did their business meeting a little differently this year. And so it's a link on our website. And I don't know if they published that, but I think they sent out materials. So if somebody wants to look at it, they can look at it either way.
Okay.
We
Kathy,
did
you want to talk about Clear?
Yeah, they provide online webinars as well. We are members of CLEAR, so we can participate, but I do think that their education costs something. But board members are willing, or not willing, but able to participate. And if you would like to just, we could reimburse you for some of that. Similar topics, of course, to what goes on at the Federation. These are more broad-based because it's, broader regulation. It's not just physical therapy. We haven't, other than what I reported on with IERF, we don't have any new reports from credentialing agencies. Although I can give you a verbal update, I do know that I did not realize that NCPT has a board as well. They are, I guess, a subsidiary of SBPT, so they're supposed to be independent. Jamie Nolan is still their interim, executive director, but their new chair of the board is Betsy Becker, and I don't know if you know her, but she's a real dynamic person, and she's an educator, I think, in Oklahoma. So, that from time to time we'll get information from them or their board. And then the correspondence, I have tried to provide you with the most interesting questions that I've gotten. And, one of these questions that we got was someone asking whether they should take the pills out of the bottle and count them when they go into someone's home to do home health for the medication portion, medication reconciliation part of what they're doing. And it's, we have done a good job. Debbie's done a great job with getting information about that. And our position statement really kind of basically says it. But I did contact the pharmacy board, and it's just not a good idea to be taking somebody else's pills out of bottles for so many reasons. And then particularly in COVID, you wouldn't want to do that. So then other people were asking, well, is it sufficient that I just ask them about it, or do I have to see the bottle and all of that? And it's amazing how deep you can get into the what if scenarios. And clearly people have had difficulty, but our job is to get the verbal report from the patient, or the best that you can do, and document that. And if a PTA is having trouble with it, they need to report it to the PT that's supervising them at the time. And then the PT is responsible for doing other communications if they're needed. We've had a question about whether physical therapists can do trigger point injections. The answer is no, it's not in our scope of practice. Self-reporting requirements. This is something that we talked about that the Public Protection Task Force is going to talk about. But we were talking about they want to know, you know, what they had to report on violations of the PT Practice Act, and we don't have something that says you have to report it within 30 days. You know, so basically, if they had some sort of conviction, a felony conviction, they wouldn't have to report it for up to a year, because that's when they have to answer the renewal questions again. But we're working on that. It was just interesting that an attorney asked that question.
Oh, an attorney, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so, you know, who knows who on whose behalf he was asking it, or just for his own information. So those, you know, if you haven't read them, they're interesting to read, just because you just never know what questions people are going to ask.
Kathy, on that pill counting question,
Yeah.
it looked like to me that PT was wanting the PTA to do a count. And I'm wondering, people who work in home health, I know they do the medical reconciliation, but are they supposed to actually count the pills? I'm not familiar with that.
No, I don't think they are. I've answered questions for this group before, and I'm going to make a little bit of an assumption that the licensee, the PT licensee that asks the questions, has worked in another jurisdiction, because they have a very different perspective than typically what I think about in North Carolina. First, it's usually the PTA asks the question first. Then the PT comes back and goes, well, I see that you answered this question for this PTA, and I don't think that's the right answer because, and then I give a broader answer, and that's usually, so, you know, what the kind of information that they needed to know to rational or provide the rationale for doing something or not doing something. But the other thing that the pharmacy board exec pointed out is just, you know, how much of a potential misperception that can create. And, you know, not only about unlicensed practice of pharmacy, but are you taking them? And, you know, it just.
Usually when we do pill counts, it's usually if someone's in a chemical dependent situation and you're treating them for that.
Well, that was the one other thing that they pointed out, was we're trying to decide if somebody's abusing medications. And I'm like, that's even farther outside of our scope of practice. You know, you're reporting on facts. Or at least what someone says they're doing. And I think that's about the best we can do as physical therapist licensees.
Usually, Kathy, what we do when that comes up is the PTA tells the PT who punts it to the nurse. That's the safest thing.
Exactly. And that brings us to the very last item, which is a discussion by the board about whether we should meet in person in 2022. The next meeting is coming up on March 9th. And what we would do is we would need to, if we were to meet in person, we would definitely have to reserve the room downstairs, because we don't have enough room in our boardroom to socially distance. If we assume that, you know, there are no further restrictions based on what's happening with COVID, you know, I think we're at the time where we're able to safely get together. And so then we'd be anticipating that board members who live far away would be able to stay in a hotel locally and then be able to participate in the meeting. So it's going to involve some travel and some hotel stay. So if people are uncomfortable with that, you know, it's important to say, and if you're not comfortable saying it right now, you know, you can think about it and let us know. But I think it's important that the board have a discussion on whether they would like to attempt to meet in person beginning in March of 2022.
Speaking for myself, I would like to meet in person, but I'm flexible to go along with whatever the majority prefers.
And there's enough time between now and March 9th to see what's going on with this new variant. And if it has to be changed at the last minute or whatever, then it can be changed. Otherwise, in person.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'm assuming that all of us have been vaccinated and hopefully have had your booster by now. So by March, we would have been fully vaccinated against the knowns of COVID, and we could meet at the health park and socially distance and wear our masks except when we're eating. And as Pearl says, if things change, then we will be nimble and flexible with whatever that direction is.
Well, we've also demonstrated that we can do the remote piece, and if we do have someone that has to participate remotely because they're ill or something like that, but they wouldn't be comfortable being here or they shouldn't be here, we can add in the remote piece, but we just have to be mindful that we will also have to do the YouTube, I think. David, am I going too far out of the bounds there to say that?
So if we have a meeting in person and it's properly noticed that it's going to be in person and we will allow the public to attend in person, then if one of the board members is unable to make it, we can allow that member to Zoom in and not have to go through the YouTube and all of that sort of thing, because the public would be welcome to come to the meeting in person.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
For myself, I mean, I'm willing to travel, and it's not a matter of discomfort or anything. It's we've been able to do it remotely and be pretty efficient. So I would propose that perhaps we have pushed the start time back a little bit, and then perhaps some of us wouldn't have to come up the night before and can save the board some money, because if we're getting out at 2:30, 3 o'clock, it doesn't seem like it would be unreasonable. Teresa runs a very efficient meeting, and we've got her for at least another year. You know, that would be my thought on it. My personal preference with my family situation is I'd rather not have to stay overnight. It's not related to COVID.
Yeah,
And so
I agree.
I appreciate the efficiency of being able to do it remotely and not have that extra travel. So that's my personal selfishness there. But if you pushed it back a little bit, even with Raleigh traffic, might still have to live at the same time.
Leslie, I share in your selfishness, because I mean, I think a hybrid model, because for some of us, we do live a good ways, and you know, and I don't mind meeting in person also, but I would like to have that option if we need to Zoom in, since Mr. Gadd has said that as long as we make it available to the public, we all don't have to Zoom in per se.
I'm curious, Leslie and Dr. Garcia, what start time do you think would be more appropriate for those of you commuting from some distance?
Well, I can still be there by the 8:15, 8:30 time. I was just suggesting for everybody. So my drive time is about 2.5 hours maybe for me, unless there's, you know, Raleigh, who knows what Raleigh's gonna throw at you, or a few Clay Marina. But if there's no calamities, I can do it 2:15, 2:20, you know? So so I certainly, if we started at 9, that would be more than sufficient time for me, but you know, and we'd still be out through Raleigh before 5 to come home.
Oh, that's true. Okay. I don't think that would be a problem. It would also give the board staff a little longer to get things set up downstairs. So a 9 o'clock start time in person with the option to join remotely if needed.
Although I think that the idea is that if we're having an in-person meeting, the preference is that as many attend in person as possible.
Yes.
Mhm. And that, I mean, hopefully that would be my plan. I mean, well, eventually we're going to have to get together.
Yeah.
I participated in an IPPT meeting back in January where
That's Eric Bossy. I know.
Sorry. That was mine.
Oh,
I was just going to say, I participated in an IPPT meeting back in Asheville when I was not yet fully vaccinated, and I did not want to be there in person. So they had an in-person and a remote option. It was a disaster because they didn't have their tech figured out. So I eventually just logged off and stopped participating because I could not hear or really. I know, David Knoll, you are a pro. You can make that work. They did not have an IT specialist on their staff to do that.
And if multiple people Zoom in, but we have a live meeting, it does start to look like we're trying to circumvent the rules about, putting it on YouTube. So one, maybe two would probably work, but if lots of people want to do that, then we likely just need to do it the way we're doing it now.
Okay. So I think we're all in agreement. We'll try it in person and then see what happens.
okay. Thank you.
Mhm. The quarterly board meeting dates are in front of you for next year, 2022, on Wednesdays, once again. First, second Wednesday of the month. We've been given these dates before, so these should not be a surprise.
Did you come up with a start time? Did you say 9?
9 o'clock.
Okay.
All right. Is there any other business or discussion to come before the board on this date? Hearing none, I want to thank you all for your time and your public service to participate as an occupational licensing board member for the North Carolina Board of PT Examiners. It is now 2:42 and this meeting is adjourned.